Alright, on this GeoGebra sketch, students are going to be able to take a parent function and its standard form equation and discover the transformations that a, b, h, and k do to the parent function. So students will receive this sheet to fill out as they do the activity. They'll use the next and previous buttons to move forward or backward on their own pace so they fully understand what's happening. So the first thing they're going to do is plug in for f of x, the parent function of the quadratic, and the standard form of the quadratic. I've already plugged that in. Then they'll hit next. On the worksheet, they're going to fill out the vertex, x-intercept, y-intercept of the parent function given by the blue and the pink one since there's no transformations done yet. As they move the sliders, they'll see that there'll be blue and a purple graph, blue being the parent function as labeled right here. Alright, next they're going to use this slider and they're going to answer the following questions about A in their own words. Given right here is the f of x, the parent function, and then the g of x. And right here I want them to notice what's happening in the equation as they use the slider so that they can make a relationship with the slider and the transformation within the equation. So they're going to move it however they like, and they're going to discover that as A gets bigger or more positive, it gets, I'm assuming they'll say skinny or some terminology such as that in their own words. And then I'm hoping they'll discover that when A is not less than 0 but between 0 and 1, it gets wider. And then the last question is what happens when A is negative. So for any negative A, they should say that it'll reflect. Alright, so the next, I would like them to reset the sliders so they're just focusing on one transformation at a time. So then they're going to look at B. Same thing, they're going to use the slider forward and backwards and answer the following questions. What happens when A increases or decreases, and when B increases or decreases, and when B is negative. And again, they should notice that as B is being slid, that it changes in the place where B is in the standard form equation. Okay, so the next, they'll reset B to 1, and they're going to look at H. And again, they'll use the slider. Go from more positive, more negative. And on this one, it's tricky because as they make the relationship to the slider in the equation, they should notice that in the equation, when H is positive in the equation, it's negative. And then I couldn't figure out a way to make this positive, but they should know that two negatives make a positive. So on the slider, when it's negative, the equation is positive. So it's actually backwards. And then the last one is going to be K. They'll reset H to 0 so they don't get confused with anything else, and they'll focus on the slider for K. And they should see that K goes up as it's positive and down when it's negative. Okay, so then some extra questions is what do they notice from the letters, from the sliders in the standard form equation, which is what I wanted them to notice from the beginning as they use the sliders and how the slider affected the equation. I want them to answer something along the lines that of the placement of A, H, and K have to do with the sliders. So they need to know where A, B, H, and K are in the equation, and that the same transformations apply as they input a number for that letter. And then I want them to discover which letters from A, B, H, and K affect the following the vertex, the x-intercept, and the y-intercept, and so forth. And then just for more of an expansion to the activity is I want them to pick their own function, and I had planned to put a couple of functions on the board. Some that we have already covered at this point would have been absolute value, so they can use either absolute value or some of the other functions I'm going to have written for them on the board, like cubic, cube root. They'll change the following two equations, g of x and f of x, to be cubic or whatever function they pick, and then they get to play with the sliders and see if the same rules apply to the cubics, which they should see that all of them work for any function that they pick. And that's it.